High school counselors, today we're going to be in the sample interview questions for your new school counseling job in your new campus. We have to declare it because it's going to happen. It's going to be part 3. If you need to watch part 1, the role of the school counselor, part 2, it's going to be what things you should bring for your interview. That's very important. And today we're going to be in part 3. So stay tuned for the new things. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell for this video so you can receive the updated advances of. Also, we're going to do a Zoom meeting, a live Zoom meeting with all of you. It's going to be recorded also to clarify some questions during April. So make sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter. So pause this video and do it right away. It's going to ask you for your email, of course. You're going to receive automatically some freebies. So make sure that you acknowledge that you're interested in this newsletter and you will get all the things. Also, I will be doing all the questions that we're going to do each video. If you sign up for our newsletter, you're gonna have like a clipboard like this one. Write down all your possible responses and also brainstorm at home, because sometimes I can provide you some guidance, but maybe you have other ideas in your head. Maybe you can tweak the things that we share in this video and make it your own or more accurate for your campus needs. So if that's you, pause the video, and this is the time to sign in for our newsletter. We're gonna have a Zoom meeting in April, so make sure that you stay tuned. Okay. It may look like there are tons of questions. Yes, they are. And to be honest, it depends of the panel that you're going to have or the people that is going to interview. They can tweak and put those questions embedded one over the other one, or they can tweak them a little bit. Usually are almost the same. And it's better to be prepared rather than have an opportunity and not be prepared for it. So let's dive in. So the first thing that I wanted to tell you today, be prepared. Use all your strategies in practice. Practice, practice. Practice in front of the mirror, practice with your husband, your wife, practice with a friend, practice with a colleague. But the most important thing, practice with somebody, rather if it's by yourself or if it's with anybody around. It is very important that someone can make some suggestions and some corrections for yourself so you can get the job that you wanted. And now we're gonna dive in our strengths and interests. So question number 1, what influenced you to be a school counselor? What's your journey to becoming a school counselor? There's something in your life specifically that took you to this route. There's something that marked your life, rather if it's personal experiences, rather if it's working with students in a different level. Find your story. Nobody can tell your story better than you. My story, I used to be a fine arts teacher. So as you know, fine arts is a way of expression, rather if it's drawing, singing, acting, music, dancing, painting, all of those are ways of expression. So I got into the situation where students were telling me different type of stories, or I was feeling in a certain way with them that connected in a different teaching role with them. So that guided me through the counseling passion and pursuit. And the more I do it, the more I fall in love of this profession. But this is my story. You find your own. Find if something happened specifically with a student, if it was a case that you work, if it was embedded in your life, maybe it's a legacy that the families are psychologists, psychiatrists, school counselors, social workers, maybe it's in your nature. Maybe a student's life or a coworker mark your life in a certain way that make you imagine your life like a timeline, right? There are some situations that change the course, change the nature of the things we're going. So this is your time to find why and share it with the world if you consider that it's appropriate. If you are like me, that I didn't come from a wealthy background talking about money, so I'm truly passionate about helping people and help them achieve their goals, help them or guide them through the right path, the way that I wish that someone would did it to me or did it with me and my classmates when we were in high school, middle school, or elementary. How amazing could be if we can change the world for good, if they can have good listening ears and a shoulder to cry out if they need to. Think about all those things. Question number 2. What do you know about our school that would consider a strength or a weakness? This one, to be honest, sometimes they tend to tweak. What do you know about our campus? They can do that one at the beginning, or sometimes none of them do it, to be honest. But that's why you need to do greatschools.org, which we mentioned in the videos before. Demographics, look for the needs, and maybe you can know somebody from that campus that they can give you a little bit of the insights. Question number 3. We're moving up. Tell us about a successful, satisfying case that you have handled and one that was not successful. What would you have done differently? Tell us about a time you helped a student be successful. In all the interviews that I did in the past, to be honest, this is the most common one. So you need to find a story. I'm not telling you to invent any story. I'm looking at you, look in your brain, think about different cases, put them all in one paper, make a list of them, and choose the best one. It needs to be one that you were very successful, or maybe not you. Let me go back. Well, you both of you were successful, the student and yourself. By saying that, that means that you connected with the students. The student came up with some struggles, or the family, and you were able to help them and guide them through the right path. And there was a good outcome out of it, out of your sessions, out of your services, out of all the amazing things you are capable of doing in your school counseling program. In the other hand, you need to find another story without breaking confidentiality, of course, without saying names or any specific details of that family or those students, where you can connect with them. Tough cases come, and the reality is that we can't fix everything with a magic wand. Even though we really want to, from the bottom of our hearts, there's no way that we can fix or we can address all the situations. Maybe you can talk about specific trauma that you let them handle, but later on, maybe the student needed extra resources or extra help, and maybe the family wasn't there. Think about also all those CPS cases that sometimes you have to report, and then sad stories, and maybe the families moved, they switched schools once CPS was involved in their lives. Think about those things that make you connect with them and bond with them and show them that you're a human, that you're going to do your best. But even though when you're doing your best, there are things that are out of your hand, and sometimes we can't fix it all. But we will try our best with our best intentions, our best heart, finding the right resources for them. But there's some things that you can do as a counselor, and then you put it in the other side of the courtyard for the parents or the families to get things done. And some parents are willing to, some parents, they need a guidance, they need a path, they need the map, they need the roadmap. Some of them, even though you give them everything, maybe they're not there yet. Maybe they are in denial. And that's okay that you share those experiences in the interview without sounding arrogant or with lack of knowledge, or it's them, it's not me, without an attitude. That's a moment where you tell the stories, but you stay calm and you show them how amazing you are. Okay? Question number 4. How would you address cultural differences in a school setting? Especially in these days, and I'm so happy that there's been a change of mindsets. It's very important that you acknowledge that diversity matters. It is very important that you preach, you act, you behave, that you talk, that your actions demonstrate that you don't have any bias against anybody. Because those preconceptions can go away because you're going to look for the human soul. So try to find a way in that question to respond, or any other question, because maybe it's not there, but it's embedded. Show them what type of person you are, that you're not judging people by ethnicities, by the color of the skin, that you are way better than that, that you are mindful of the struggles of our society, that you are mindful of the things that are happening, but that's not you. You believe in inclusion. You believe that everyone matters. Everyone can have a place in this world, and you will make sure that you program is a cohesive, comprehensive program that your office, your campus, and your school, everyone is welcome. It's like the book All Are Welcome Here. Like that book, exactly the same. Your heart, the doors of your office are going to be wide open for whoever needs your services. Same mindful of what you're asking and doing in your lessons, okay? As you all know, I'm Hispanic, so I'm part of a minority. So well, let me see, how can I share this in a nice way? Okay, even though people may not think, I suffer from the bias everywhere I go. You can run this situation in two different cards. I can play the victim, or I can acknowledge that and move on and say, I know who I am. Same old with you when you go to an interview, when you go to a different place, and when you're planning with your students. It is very important that if you're not going through that process, that you are mindful of it. And every time I plan anything with my students, whether if it's a video, if it's a small group, if it's an activity, if I'm choosing different people in the classroom to respond to questions, I try to be very mindful that diversity matters, that depending of your background and your culture are the responses that you may have, depending of your family values, your core values, depending of what are you exposed to, where you're not exposed to, are you going to be your responses. So like we were talking about, bring diversity to the plate, bring diversity to your conversations. Bring awareness, bring conscious decisions for your program and for your students. The next question is, what is something you could bring to our program? What innovations or current best practices will you incorporate into your delivery of services? So this is the time where the school is asking you to bring different things. You could ask them, I'm going to provide some information, but I would like to hear if some of the things that I described, I mentioned before, there's a couple of options depending of what you're looking for or depending of the needs of your campus. I'm going to mention some, and if it's okay, I will ask a question about it. This is a conversation, this is a dialogue, this should be natural and spontaneous. They should see that you're not only a book of responses, but that you're ready, depending of the needs of the campus, that you can tweak and switch in and attend, take care of the needs. That's basically what it is. Okay, this is the part when you need to bring a cohesive program. You're going to talk about your guidance lessons. You're going to talk about the components of your counseling program. But most important, if you know any program for free food for the families, there's sometimes, before COVID, there was a couple of more programs that you can bring to your campus, depending if the school is Title I, it will be some of the resources. If the school is not Title I, sometimes we have to tweak it and switch it a little bit. There's programs even for, if the students improve their reading level, they will bring free bikes for the whole school. If that's something that you know how to work on, bring it. Churches around you, any type of services that they will bring school supplies, free school supplies for them, or they will be in programs, they will be in performances related obviously to counseling services, like anti-bullying campaigns or plays. If you know, for example, for Thanksgiving, Christmas, any type of events where you can sponsor families in need, that's a good one as well. For example, PBIS. It's a great program that they can bring you can bring them in and work in many different ways, whether if it's discipline, school culture, climate, positive, obviously, school culture, climate. Rather, if it is the PBIS store where the students can earn signatures or points for the good behavior and the good things that they're doing because they're respectful, they're responsible, and they're following all the instructions and doing what they're supposed to do, they earn some points and they can redeem it in a store. Let's say that you can bring parenting classes. Maybe we should not call it parenting classes, but programs for the families where they can, rather if it's technology, maybe the need is technology. They don't know how to sign in. They don't know what to do. Maybe cyber safety. Social media is a big thing right now. So maybe you should bring something for the parents and the community. Maybe it's related thinking about the future, a career week, a parent university. Maybe could be, let me see. Maybe it's muffins with dad, muffins with mom, hot dogs with dad, or all those type of programs that you can bring in, that you can get the community involved. If you're gonna do any type of food drive through, all those things you can bring to the plate. The next question is, how do you handle criticism, or how do you handle stress? Well, if it's the question is about criticism, so it kind of gives you like a hint that maybe the previous person didn't took it well when they made some suggestions. Maybe it could be. The other question that is very common, the other question tied up to that one that somebody asked me in a different way was like, how do you look when you're overwhelmed? And that's when I told them, I tend to overeat. You're gonna see me sugar cravings. You're gonna see me drinking Coke, which is something that, to be honest, I don't do very often. But you will see me with a Coke, with my Sour Patches or my watermelon gummies or chips, junk food. When I'm overwhelmed, yes, you know what? It's comfort food, right? We're all counselors, so guilty of. Anyway, but that will be, they want to know who you are as a human, you know, and that you're not going to be disrespectful or you're going to cause another trouble for the campus. They want to know that you are a team player and you will be there for them, okay? Maybe you isolate yourself, or you give yourself a timeout when you're overwhelmed, or you close the door, or maybe you put a sign, do not disturb, because maybe you're overwhelmed with all the paperwork that you need to do. It is very important that think through it. I'm giving you some suggestions. That doesn't mean that you have to respond the same. Think about it and make it your own. Be natural, be authentic, but make sure that if you think your response is not to be inappropriate, don't say it. Take note. The next question is, how do you handle stress? And this is the one that we were talking about. Stress is part of our schools and our campus every day. Just want to make sure that you're safe. This is the one that we were talking about a couple of seconds ago. Then, you know, our job is very stressful. Make sure that you practice self-care. That's another thing that you can say. I exercise, I do yoga, I do meditation, I take tons of coffee. Maybe that's your coping skill. Who knows? Make sure that you let them know how do you cope with your stress. The next question, are you available to work in the evenings for functions such as parent programs, student programs? Working in school often includes extended hours. How will you balance work-life demands? This is a tough one. Okay, I want you to be honest. So this is a tough question. So you have to be honest and you have to tell them the truth of how do you feel, rather if it's a yes, a no, or a yes or no. Be mindful. If you're a new counselor, let me tell you something. There's no way that you're not gonna stay after school. So after your shift ends, bunch of times you're gonna cut yourself in like working kind of overtime, but without getting paid. It's just the way it is. Especially reason number one, maybe you can have a crisis, and especially sometimes our crisis happen at 2 p.m. and maybe you're leaving your work at 4 p.m. So that kinds of guides you for your emergency conference, for your contacting all the administration nurse, interviewing the child, doing the screener, safety plan, uploading everything. And if you have to submit something for your district, there's no way that at 4 p.m. you will be done with the process. Finding resources for the family. If you need to transport the student to a facility, all those things play a big role. But let's say not crisis. We're not talking about any type of crisis. Now we're going to think about common normal situations. So let's say a lot of paperwork, meetings after school with your administration team. Maybe you have a club. Maybe you have an after school program. Maybe there's a a parent night and you have to coordinate some events. I have children and I have to stay a bunch of times in school. And I know it's hard, but it's part of our job. It's trying to find the balance. Whenever they tell you, rather if you have babies or not babies or grown-ups, or maybe you have baseball, soccer, maybe you have volleyball, maybe you have to pick up your kids from 3 different campuses, maybe you want your time, maybe you have a doctor's appointment. It's very important that you're honest. It's like, hey, so my son, my daughter, I have a daughter, I have to pick her up by, or him up by 4:30. So most of the times I really need to go on time, but that doesn't mean there's exceptions. And my husband and I, my better half and I, my wife, my mom, grandparents, I have a plan B for those type of situations. If I'm not able to do this or that, someone else will be covering for me. But yes, I definitely, obviously all of us don't want to stay late, but you probably are going to have to more often than you want to be honest. But if you're committed, and you can say that if I'm committed to my work, I have my plan B, and say in case that something happens and I have to stay late and emergencies can happen, if I can coordinate in advance, obviously that will be way better. But in case that a crisis arises or we have a special event in school, I'm able to make those arrangements. If you are not able to make those arrangements in advance, you need to let them know right away. And you know that could be a possible yes for you as an employee, or a big old no. Maybe they need someone, or maybe that campus is like an emergency room. So take those things in consideration. That's a question that you may have, okay? And if you don't have it in an interview, in the real job, you will have those type of situations. So it's really good that you can make up your mind. Sometimes I remind myself, no, this week I have this meeting, please God, let me be on time for the swim team for my children. Let me be on time to cook something, all those type of things. And try to do not make it a habit. Sometimes it is what it is. The next question, well, let me recap a little bit. Let me go back so I can read it for you. What influenced you to be a counselor, a school counselor? Tell us about the successful, satisfying story, and one that maybe didn't that well. What do you know about our school? The strengths and weaknesses. The other one, how would you address cultural differences in a school setting? And then that guides us to questions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Question 5, how do you handle criticism? Question 6, how do you handle stress? Question 7, are you available to work on the evenings? Question number 8, what is your experience with parenting programs? What support will your counseling program offer to parents? What instructional services can you provide? Those are the topics that we were talking a little bit. Do you see how each question kind of connects between one another? So that's the part where you're going to bring all those programs that you can bring to the campus, and all those ideas and parent trainings and so much more. Tip number 1 for that one, if you provide food and snacks, for some reason that works very, 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 very well. So if you're having parents in your campus, make sure that you have food and snacks for them, and that could make a successful event. The other part, if it's a Title I school, probably will be a little bit easier to find those things. If you're not, maybe donuts, juice, drinks, water bottles, maybe something simple. Sometimes I caught myself buying some stuff. That's kind of normal too. That happens. But if you can talk to your school secretary and your principal in advance, I'm pretty sure that they will find something for you. Okay, how do you keep yourself organized? Especially if the other person wasn't very organized, or the opposite, the other person was a Jedi. That person was like, boom, you name it. What document? Here. The other document here. The other document here, 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 here. And that person was really good at it. High expectations for you. So technically, the students, you can take it home, right? So that's one thing that we need to touch bases later. Paperwork needs to be done, and you need to have a system. So think about what are the systems that you use for your counseling log. I have electronic, I have folders, electronic copies, and paper-based hard copies of the documents that I use with my students in my sessions. I put those in folders. Your calendar needs to be updated and up to date as well. Share those. So what are the systems that you use to keep track of yourself? Do you pause every 9 weeks and you reorganize your calendar? That's something that you should do, okay? I'm going to demonstrate a little bit over here in a picture some ways that you can organize your day. And that's the perfect way you can say, hey, so Tuesdays, I'm going to do 504 if that's your case, or testing stuff. Or maybe I'm going to block, for example, for testing weeks. Star test, any type of test that you are providing or helping, I'm gonna block that specific week only for that thing. If you have an emergency, it's obvious that you're gonna be flexible and you're gonna take care of the needs first, but you will block that. If you're gonna do one day for individual counselings, another day for small groups, you're gonna block them. Let's say Monday, individual counseling, for example. Maybe in the morning, you're gonna check your emails every morning, or every afternoon, twice per day, or in the middle, maybe during your lunch or after lunch. You know that the stamina is running slow. You can check your emails and catch up, respond parent phone calls, set up appointments. How do you divide your day in a way that makes sense and shows them that you are organized and ready? That your desk is not gonna be piled with stuff. Anyway, so divide your day in tasks. That's the best way that I can describe it. Divide it in tasks and show it. So I'm going to show a picture over here how it would look like. So let's say Monday, individual counseling. Your lunch obviously is every day, even though you don't take it, put it in your calendar. Emails twice a day or one time per day. When you're going to check your voicemails, when you're going to archive, let's say I don't have any emails, I'm done, so archive some documents. When you're going to check your data, when you're going to do your guidance lessons, so they can have an overview. That's why in the other video we were talking a little bit about that. Okay. So let's move on. The other question was, are you proficient in a language other than English? That's your moment to shine. If you didn't say it, tell me a little bit about yourself in the first question. In the first video, I'm going to put it over here. If you're interested in watching the role of the school counselor in the first questions, click over there because we're almost done with this amazing video for you. Make sure that you let them know if you're trilingual, if you're bilingual, if you only speak one language. Listen to me. If that's your case, if you only speak one language, that's okay. But you will use, I have a student from Germany. I have a student from Ukraine. I have Vietnamese students. I have a bunch of students that sometimes I have to use Google Translate. And I tell the student, I'm sorry, I know that this, but it's a way for us to communicate with each other. So let's try it. The student talks to me. And to be honest, those are the sessions where I enjoy the most. We laugh and laugh from one another because we all know that Google Translate is not necessarily going to translate everything perfectly for us, but it works and it is a tool that it's available at our fingertips over there to use. So, if you know a little bit, or if you comprehend, but maybe you cannot verbally express, you can say that as well. If you, maybe there's an emergency and they are in need of someone that is bilingual or trilingual or who knows, you will let them know. Do we have any staff members? Even though with a confidentiality, I'm gonna try to convince the student if I cannot, let's say I will try my best to handle the situation. If I can't, is there anybody in the building, like the secretary or a person who can assist me in a couple of questions? I will ask the student in a respectful way, is that okay if I bring, do you know who is so and so? Maybe it's the secretary. Is that okay if so-and-so help us translate this conversation a little bit? I just want to make sure that you understand what we're saying and we're all on the same page. Is that okay with you? If the student says yes, you can bring that person. And it's very important that also the administrators or the people who is in the interview understands that you're not giving up. You're going to find a solution because we're solution focused. You're going to try your best to connect with the story, even though you are not comprehending what the student or the parent is saying, that you are trying to break those chains, close the gaps, and do your work as best as you can. And if they say something that you're worried about the confidentiality, as long as the student is informed and they agree, they say yes, I can, it's like the student is giving you permission to share the information. So that means that the student is acknowledging or letting you know, yes, I want this person in my meeting, so that's okay. What I do not want you is to give up. Don't give up. That question, most of the time they can't find bilingual people. So do not let your journey stop there. If you're the candidate for that position, fight for it in the good way, by responding in the right way, approaching the situations with a solution-focused mindset into the world. Okay? Part 4, and I promise that I will try my best to put it in 5 days or less up so you can start reviewing. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this shirt, I'm gonna leave the link down below. It says School Counselor Live. I'm gonna put the link down below in case that you're interested to. Let me know your questions. Let me know how can I support you, and see you in part 4. Thank you for your time. Have an amazing week. Bye.